What I'm hearing and feeling, as well as those around me, is that we're all jumping timelines. We're expanding our spiritual practices. We're raising our collective vibration of love. And that is taking over some of the lower frequencies and density that has existed. So I think the more that we get towards the tipping point, and hopefully we'll get there soon, we are going to turn the tide of energy on this planet to the energy of love. And as such, we will start to experience that more and more. And so what everyone is saying to me, and the astrologers that I work with and the spiritual healers, is we're in the now and present moment. We're in the all time, as they say. So focusing on the past is it's not relevant.
Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Yeah.
Hello, you beautiful souls. Welcome to the Praise the Sun podcast, where I'm honored to have on my guest, Ceree Eberly. Ceree, how are you?
I am excellent. It's so wonderful to be on the show, and I'm very honored to be with you.
I'm honored to have you here as well. Thank you so much for your time. I know this is going to be a powerful episode full of vital information for our guests. So could you, for people who are not familiar with you, could you give us a timeline of your spiritual awakening to how you got to where you are now?
Sure. And so I would just tell you, I grew up in the Deep South, in Tennessee. I lived in Georgia for many years, but I followed a very traditional upbringing, was raised in a religious conservative family, very similar to many of you out there. And I was not Catholic. I went to Catholic school, but I was raised Presbyterian or Protestant. And very conservative days, went off to school, did a corporate career, spent 30 years with one company. And in 2017, I had the opportunity to step away, and it was a hard decision, but it was the easiest decision of my life. And I wanted something more. I had gotten a PhD in all things corporate, and I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt kind of emptiness. And so that started my quest. And in 2017, I had 3 people who I met kind of serendipitously. One was an astrologer who actually saw my future. If I stayed with my company, if I stayed and went this direction, what would happen? Or if I took the road less traveled, what would happen? So I took the road less traveled, and she's still a personal friend and advisor today. I met another young woman who has been on the show named Cindy, who was a channeler of the collective energies of Joseph. And then she's been a great friend. And then I met a gentleman who I would describe as either a soulmate or a twin flame. And all 3 of them in their own way really helped open me up to my spiritual journey and expansion. And what I realized in being in a business role 24/7, I was also raising a son as a single parent and living in different parts of the world. I had not chosen an easy path. So I had no time for me or to learn or to discover. So I went on this quest, Sage, to discover the world. So I went to India. I went and swam in shark cages off the island of Guadalupe, which is off the coast of Ensenada, about 24 hours. And it's the biggest breeding ground of great white sharks. So I actually got up and close and personal with great whites. And I started a meditation practice and started filling journals full of meditations that I didn't understand. And I can describe a few of those to you. And then I started this spiritual quest of learning more. I studied astrology, I studied energy, became a Reiki master. I studied under 3 different tarot masters because tarot is another form of energy. And then the most fascinating thing that I did was I got an Akashic Records reading, which is in essence the records of the journey of the soul, however many incarnations you've been incarnated. And there are soul records that you can tap into that help you learn about past lives and things that have happened that help you be the best and highest version of yourself in this lifetime. So I've gone through about 3 different levels of mastery in that, and I actually teach it now. And so I am all things spiritual. I also volunteer a lot in the community, and I was always raised to be of service to others. And I feel like now I'm on point in mission to help people figure out, why are they here as a soul? What are they trying to learn? Who do they want to be as they are incarnated here at this time? And why are they here? And I think most of us would say, earning a living is fine, but we want to find a higher calling and purpose for our lives. And so I'm just honored and thrilled that I finally got the memo, if you will, and drank the right kind of Kool-Aid.
Drink the right type of Kool-Aid. Yes, I love it.
Spiritual
Wow.
Kool-Aid.
It's a spiritual Kool-Aid, exactly. Yes. Wow. Um, so as you are where you are currently, do you feel like it was like necessary to go through each individual thing that you've been through to get to where you are now? Like all the like the job that you work and all those experiences there was like that kind of like part of the plan.
I think everyone can say, things are random or they weren't planned, but I do think that we do plan to learn certain things as we come in. And I think the more that we learn and discover and open up to who we really are, the more that you realize sometimes you had to experience certain lessons in order to get you to the place where you are today. And I'm grateful for the lessons. Were they easy or fun? No. And when I do work in the Akashic Records, when I see people who have taken these monstrous challenges, whether it be, loss of a child or divorce or addiction or any kind of very challenging circumstance that they have had to encounter, struggle with, and master, that tells me this is a high level soul in someone who is at a high level of soul mastery. So I actually love when people have had challenging journeys because as a soul, they came here to learn of the highest order. And so I'm very impressed when I see people who have struggled and been challenged.
Hmm. What do these struggles and challenges do for the development and growth of our soul?
Well, they're teachers. I think they're teachers for us because if you allow it, and I think we've all been programmed, and I'm no different, that there was always a right or wrong. If in religious days of old, I don't know if you remember this as a kid, oftentimes if something bad happened, they would say to you, well, you must have made God mad or you did something, that God didn't like. So here's your punishment. And that God was at times about fear. It was not about love. And I can remember even as a kid going, I don't get that. And it's funny, my dad's been gone about, I don't know, going on 20 years now. But before he died, and I was, of course, an adult at that time, and I said to him as he was sick and we were on the couch talking, and I said to him, Dad, I said, we've all been taught that there's only one chosen set of people that are going to heaven. And I said, what if we got it all wrong? And I said, because what it says to me is that there's one group to the exclusion of all the others, whether it be the Baptists to the Presbyterians or the Presbyterians to the Catholics or, take your pick. And if God is as loving as you taught us that he was, why can't everyone be going to heaven? There's no exclusivity here. If we all love him and he is about love and the message that Yeshua or Jesus preached is about love, then why can't everyone have the keys to the kingdom? And he said, good push. And he came to me in a dream after he died, and he said, I think you're on the right path here. It's not either or, it's and. So embrace your religious upbringings and value those, but you are expanding your level of understanding and awareness in the right ways because God is love. And continue on, daughter. And that's what I got out of the dream. And it really helped me frame the way that I live my life today. It's through the lens of love.
Through the lens of love. You're one of the few people that I've heard actually call Yeshua by his actual birth name, which is very interesting. What do you know about his teachings?
Well, it's interesting. There is a gentleman that I've met. He and his wife, they're professionals. She's a marketeer, and he is a speech pathologist for children with challenges in learning disabilities. And he actually channels the energy of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. So I have, had up front and personal opportunities to learn about the lessons that he came here to earth to teach when he was incarnated. And it's a very simple message, and it hasn't changed since he was on the planet, over 2,000 years ago. It's simply to be guided by love, and to be in the vibration of kindness, of compassion, of peace, of community. And if there's only one thing you remember about his teachings, that it's about love, love of self and love of others, and living in that vibration of love, then you got it. It's no more difficult than that. And I think people try to either politicize his teachings, or they try to make them fear-based. Simply not true. He was always about love. And what's interesting is that he channels the feminine energies also of Mary Magdalene, and she is much more masculine in her demeanor, her energy, and Yeshua's is much softer, almost more feminine than her. So it's been fun to be part of a group where you actually see the energy coming through and to connect with that energy. And so the teachings are literally the same that they were 2,000 years ago.
Beautifully said. I love that, and that I embody that principle, that love, very often, because as I was going through my awakening and getting tapped into myself on a quantum level and tapping into those memories, I very much had memories of being very close and understanding and studying how to love back then, and those principles of just giving love. So I've always questioned why there was some dissonance for me when I was growing up as Christian, when I would hear certain things and I was like, that just doesn't resonate with me. That I don't think that's what he said. And then I finally understood as I grow older that wasn't what he was saying. It was about love. It was very simple, like you said. It's just about love. So
yeah, it's interesting. I've lived in different parts of the world, and I went about 7 or 8 years ago to Israel, and I just could not get enough of the Dead Sea, and I was just so attracted to the whole area, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Dead Sea itself, Jerusalem. And I just felt like I'd lived there before. And one of the times I was in their company, he looked at me and told me that he recognized me, that I was one of his Essene teachers. And the Essenes were there in the time of Yeshua and even before his birth. And they were teachers, and they were in the area of Jerusalem, but also along the Dead Sea, in an area called Qumran. And he said that he traveled to Qumran, and I was the teacher that taught him about the soul. And he was quite young then. It was after he left Egypt, kind of the lost years. And he said he had a crush on me. And so that was interesting, because he blushed. And it was a lot of fun to connect with that energy, because he said I was an Essene teacher from way back in the day. And that's how he remembered me.
Could you tell me more about the Essenes? What were they teaching?
Oh,
Was
gosh.
it
Well,
just more of Yeshua's teachings, or?
yes, and they actually taught a lot around the same foundation principles of what Yeshua's teachings became, and they taught him about the soul. They taught him different languages. They taught him many skills, some of the healing techniques. And the Essenes were known to be quite secluded, and they did not interact as much. There were some Essenes that lived as married couples in families in places like Jerusalem, but there was a group of them who were single, and they lived, men and women, as equals, lived as teachers and teachers of teachers. And so that's why Yeshua was in their presence. They were very cleanly. They had very strict rules around cleanliness and what they ate. They wore white, it was said. And it is said that some of them were directly connected with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the scrolls in that ancient time as scribes, or giving information for the content of the scrolls themselves.
Okay, that makes sense. I learned a bit about their scenes when I was studying Dolores Cannon's work.
Yeah, she wrote a great book.
Yeah,
The past life regression of that gentleman who was an Essene and recorded the history. So if anyone wants to read it, you can Google Dolores Cannon, and it's a book on the Essenes.
yes, yes. I have yet to read that book. I've read all of the Convoluted Universes. She's literally the reason why I became a hypnotist. And It's that whole series is just fascinating.
Yeah.
I have so many favorite stories. One of them was with the woman who was ISIS, I believe.
Yes.
That was a powerful story. I was like, wow.
Yeah. She
That's
carries the Hathor energy. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of meditations where I have been in past lives and I was dressed in white and I was around the Dead Sea. And at times I was in Jerusalem and I just never understood that. And so my astrologer friend, who I mentioned earlier, I call her and say, okay, I think I'm losing my mind. I'm having all these meditations of places that I've been, different people that I've been, and I don't understand them. And what she said was, just write them all down because it would appear to her that all my past timelines and lifetimes were being dumped into the here and now and converging. And that's actually what's happening on the planet, is that all timelines are merging. So there's not a past and there's not a future. It's all in the now. And we have, multiple timelines of choice that we can aspire or ascend to. And so she said, it'll all make sense to you one day. So the dots have started connecting, and I can tell you in great detail different lives that I've been. I've been in a scene in a number of lifetimes. I was also one day I had a meditation, and I was a teenager, and I was dressed in old-fashioned, like a white cotton long sleeve shirt and trousers, and I was climbing up a bell tower. And when I got up to the top of the tower where I could see, I just knew I was in Portugal, and I was looking out to the ocean. The sun was coming up, and this was on top of a church. And so evidently I was an altar boy in the church, and I had scrambled up the tower to watch these ships going out in the harbor. And there was a set of them. I don't know if there were 3 or 4, I don't recall now. And they were the old clipper ships that had kind of the square sails, and they were massive. And I was sitting there watching them leave the area, and I was witnessing, and because I went back downstairs and I got in trouble. One of the priests hit my ear, and because I was late, and I heard them grumbling about the fact that people were not in church, and they were going to see this explorer take off on a voyage. It was Vasco da Gama, and of course, we studied Vasco da Gama in history, maybe in 8th grade, but I didn't know anything about it. But I was in that time period, and I could describe what the roofs look like, the terracotta roofs, and the bay, the ocean, the clipper ships, and it was quite fascinating. So, and I'd write all these down without having any understanding of why I'm having these things.
Fascinating. Wow. Let's talk about the Akasha. How did that come into your life?
Well, Cindy actually referred me to a practitioner, and she is living, I think she's in Tennessee still today, but she reads Akashic Records, and her father was a Cherokee shaman. So she was very gifted, and she went in the first time and basically said that I had spent many lifetimes in the Akash in many different roles. And so that's why I was attracted to it. And she encouraged me to go through training. So I actually trained on multiple levels with her trainer and spent a number of years working in the Akash and kind of upping my game, if you will, in connecting to the various soul records of people who wanted to know more about their soul's journey. So I've been doing this now about maybe 6 years, and it's really a gift. And so when I went into the records for the first time to do a reading, they said, welcome home. And I was like, I'm new. And they said, nope, you've been here many lifetimes. And they showed me a variety of different roles that I had played, from scribe to scout. And I used to go out to all these locations around the world and travel and come back and record on scrolls what I saw and heard as part of the general history. Now, just to back up for a second, Akash comes from the Sanskrit word Akasha, which means primary substance, or from which all things emerge. And so it has a basis in the word from Sanskrit, but it is mentioned in almost every religious text that exists. That in some references it's called the Book of Life, and they've called it different things, but it is, think of it as the soul records being kept in the cloud, if you will. back, except in those days they didn't have the cloud storage. And so it is a recording of every soul's journey, whether it be to earth or to other realms. And it's a recording of those incarnations and lifetimes. And it is kept sacred. And so Archangel Metatron is the guardian of the Akash. And there's a set of what we call wisdom keepers who actually guard and protect the records, but they are the ones who communicate the information that the person has requested to know or to understand. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah,
So,
think of it as soul records in a cloud.
yes. And how does it come to you? Was it visually that you saw it?
Well, it's interesting. The way that most readers are taught is to go through a very deep meditation. So I had had a number of years meditating, so it was easy for me to go into that theta state where I was able to connect. Some readers envision going into what they would call an old library, and they see a book and they read from the book records about this in particular, the soul that has asked the questions. Some they see, some they hear, and it depends on, Sage, what clairs are the strongest for you. But for me, it is if I live there. And so I can describe the building in great detail. In fact, it was in my meditations for many years. I just didn't know what it was. And I would be on this ancient campus with these other teachers, and we were going to school and listening to lectures, and it looked like it was around ancient Rome or Greece. And it was warm, and we would be in small soul groups, and we'd be working together. And I saw this building in the distance, but never went to it. So the first time I went in, I could describe to you the foyer, the door, the steps. It looks like an ancient Roman temple with these huge columns and about a 2-story-foot door, a big wooden door that's very heavy and hard to open, a foyer, and then you walk all the way back through the building. And on the right side, room after room after room, it goes up about 2 stories. There are these ladders. And if you remember the old movies where they would have the tall ladders that would slide across with the wheels, and people would go up and down the ladders and put books on the bookshelf. In this particular case, there are no bookshelves, but there are these file drawers where data is stored for the records of the soul. And then I go back to what they call reading rooms, and I go in and I listen to the messages. So I see a set of souls who I call the wisdom keepers, and they give me the messages. So I was trying to go into meditation first and just listen, and I would come out and try to write everything down, and that freaked me out. So I was told, why don't you just get on your computer, and when you hear the messages, your job is to be the scribe. Now, when I connect before I go into the records, I will connect with a incarnation or a past lifetime that's very important for that person. Perhaps it's a question that they ask, or it's something that they want this person to know and understand about themselves. And I have gone out into this field of light before I walk over to the building, and I've been men, I've been women, I've been children, I've been dressed in all different kinds of dress. And when I get into the room is about the size of a conference room, and it is decorated, or it looks like some essence of that person's soul. And so I really connect with the energy of that soul, and I'm able to tap into that lifetime. And then they'll go from there to other lifetimes that they have either asked about, or that information would be important for them to understand about their journey in this lifetime. So it's a pretty cool process, but I go through meditation, but I'm kind of on all clairs, and I really experience it and as if I have been working there. So people say hello to me. I greet the same people when I go in. I can tell you when it's sunrise, when it's sunset by the light in the building. So it's extremely specific for me.
Wow. So for the records of the person's soul, does the Akasha also contain the future? Or
Well,
how does that work?
A lot of people will ask for predictions, and what they tell most souls is that they don't make predictions about the future, because what is unique about planet Earth that is not unique to some other experiences is that we have free choice and free will. So when they show paths that someone could take in the future, they usually show me, it looks like a big oak tree, and the branches kind of go up all the way out. And based on the person's free will and choice, they can choose like to go to the right or to go straight up the tree or to the left. And they don't make an outcome that's predetermined, because it's not. So they say the future is as you create it. And as we are moving into this more quantum concept of time and space, you know, the future is going to be written as we step into it. And the past is really not really relevant, because it's all about the here and now. I'm still wrapping my head around it. I'm still learning about it. So living in the moment, and that's what we've all been told, is that forget about healing the things that happened 2,000 years ago. All this is coming into one timeline, and we have the here and now to be creators of our own consciousness. And this is what the ascension process is about, is living in the moment. And things, resources, people show up based on the alignment with your soul, and you manifest from a place of love. That's about as simple as it gets. So I hope that helps explain it in the way it's been explained to me by them.
Yes, and that's so interesting that you say that, because you're one of the few people who've said what I've seen in my meditations. When I was asked, when I wanted, I created the intention to like see how reality looks from a different perspective and different dimension, and I saw what looked like a tree. Like it was very much like a nervous system. Like
Yeah.
it was like
Almost
different
like a weird
paths.
system. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like towards the end of those, I guess if you want to say telomeres, they weren't solidified because the choices that needed to take place haven't taken place yet to create, you know, to solidify that. So it's like it's a set of probabilities. And I was always fascinated by that perspective. Whenever I saw that, that was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because, you know, people ask me, well, you know, are you a psychic or a medium? And I was like, not per se, and I don't predict the future. And, you know, I use tarot because tarot is a read of energy, but, you know, you don't necessarily use it to predict a particular outcome. But, you know, I have connected people in the Akashic, you know, ancestors or people's loved ones that want to go come through. I did a reading for a woman who lost her daughter, and she just couldn't understand, you know, the why. And it was, you know, tragic that she lost her daughter at an early age. Her daughter had been gone about a year, and this is the first time it had happened to me, but she asked the record keepers if she could actually speak through me to her mom and to explain what happened. And basically they had made a soul contract to come in together in this lifetime, and they were from the angelic realm. And the mom had been to Earth a number of incarnations. And so she had mastered the ability to live a different existence, because this planet is unique in the amount of density and lower frequency energy that it carries. And for people who are of light-bodied essence, it's very challenging. So angelic beings have challenges incarnating here and actually holding the frequency because it's too low. The difference between the two oftentimes results in people getting sick. So this was only, I think, maybe her second time coming in from the angelic realm to Earth, and she died early. And it was not because the mom had done anything right or wrong or didn't get her enough, you know, medical support. It was simply that she could not hold the energy. Her frequency was too high, and that created a dissonance within her physical and emotional body, and it resulted in her early passing. And what I've come to find out is many children who have died young are what they call earth angels. They come in to incarnate on Earth with a specific mission and task. Oftentimes they can't do that because the energy frequencies are just too different, and it's difficult for them to maintain that physical low density body. So it was pretty wild when it happened, but it really made sense to the mom. And it's the first time that she'd actually heard anything like this that made sense to her. And so oftentimes ancestors do come through and explain things. And it's really just unique to the individual.
That was very powerful, and I know that's going to help so many people understand how to process things like that, how to move forward through grief like that, because
Mm-hmm.
very often it's something that's they're not even understanding. Like the mom was trying to understand, why does she, why does she have to go? Why does she have to go? And
Mm-hmm.
to give that would give me, relief to if I received that perspective. I was like, you know what, that makes sense.
Well, it's interesting, when you open up to your spiritual gifts, and this is the other thing they don't tell you, sometimes you'll have experiences that you really can't explain to people. Like my 14-year-old yellow lab died a couple of weeks ago, and he was my BFF, and he was my companion, and moved across the country with me, been through a lot. And so the day after he passed, I kept saying, I wanted to hear from the angels and my guides. I just said, can you just give me a sign that he made it across the Rainbow Bridge and he's happy? That's all I want to know. The whole day, crickets. And I kept asking. I'm like, okay, it can just be a feather. It can be anything. Just give me a sign before I go to bed. Crickets. And by the time I got to bed, I was so mad, I couldn't even sleep. And then I was woken up about 3:45 in the morning. And basically, the guides are at the foot of the bed. And people ask me, did you see them? I said, no, I felt them. And basically what I was told was, and that Milo, who was my dog, was there. And they said that he's actually one of my spirit guides and has been. And he was sent to me about 14 years ago. And it was at a big inflection point in my life to see if I could move from being stuck in my head and surviving. That's how I lived, into dropping into a heart-centered way of living. Could I actually love a human being or a dog or another soul through the lens of unconditional love? And I said, well, how did I do? And they said, well, at first we were really worried because you were gone all the time. You were traveling, you were on a plane, and you weren't very present. So they said, however, the last 7 years you've been stellar. And they told me who he was with, and it was his old keeper who would keep him when I traveled. And this gentleman died about 3 years ago, very unexpectedly. And his name was Cooney. And they said he's with Cooney now and a bunch of other dogs, but he is part of your spirit team and I'll always be with you. So don't be sad. Of course, you've got the expression of grief and loss, but this was a soul lesson for you. And this is what you were wanting to learn. And this is why this soul came to you. I mean, what a beautiful way to frame someone's passing. So I'm still sad, but I have a completely different experience now with it.
Wow. That's exactly how I felt when my great grandmother passed. Before she even passed, we was at the hospital and we were doing a prayer for her to say that she's going to be okay. And then she shook her head. No, she wasn't even, her body wasn't even able to function, but she was just like, mm-mm. So then eventually she did pass and I was sad. I was just like, I just want to know that she's okay. I want to know that she made it. Cause I usually, get some type of download or something. And then eventually she came to my bedside and she just kept calling my name. And then I felt someone put their hand on my arm. And I woke up, but it's, I guess like in spiritual sense, I saw her, like I saw a figure there, but then when I woke up, I didn't see anyone there, but I just knew that was her. So now I felt okay.
Yeah.
So it I know we kind of just want that closure sometimes that they're okay, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was her time to go. And as soon as I saw her shake her head, I'm like, okay, I guess she's ready. And she
Yeah.
was in her 70s, so it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and my friends like Cindy and my astrologer friend, Marilyn, they've also helped me along the journey, like understanding energy. So when I feel presences, sometimes it's, dead relatives that come through in the Akashic Records that want to speak, or ancestors. But sometimes I will feel very large energy. So one is Archangel Michael. And I see color when I see energies. And another one that came up, and I used to call her Gilda because I didn't know who she was. And I could feel like over my shoulder this kind of orangey pink, beautiful, compassionate energy. And sometimes when she was around in my meditation, I could also feel the color blue, and I would see blue roses. And so called my friend Marilyn, said, oh, you know, and we were doing a Zoom, and she's like, oh, she's on your right shoulder right now. And I said, well, I call her Gilda. And she said, that's not Gilda, that's Kuan Yin. And the other one who's around you on the other side is Mother Mary. So when you're seeing blue, the color, or blue roses, that signifies Mother Mary's energy, and Kuan Yin, which is a very similar frequency. Oftentimes they are together, and it's a beautiful, beautiful vibration of compassion and kindness and love. I just didn't know what they were. So, you know, I call and go, okay, this happened today. Am I nuts? Or is this, you know, part of the process? And they go, oh yeah, totally normal. So I see energies as colors. And oftentimes I'll see different energies in the Akash, and I've come to recognize who they are. Like Archangel Metatron is the keeper of the Akashic Records, and I feel a very specific presence when he is in the room.
Archangel Michael was the first angel that I connected with many years ago. And I'll never forget the way I connected to him, because I didn't even know who he was.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I was at a hypnosis conference, and the person leading it, her name was Shelly Stockwell Nicholas, and she was putting us all in like this kind of trance. She was doing this rapid thing where we say immediately what we're feeling, and she said, we're going to get you in touch with your guide. So she said, you know, is your guide short or tall? I said tall. And then she said, what's the color? I said blue. Does he have wings or not? I said has wings. And then she said, finally, okay, what's his name? And it's like Michael. And you have to give these answers, you know, quickly. There's no time for the ego mind to analyze and think. And I was like, Michael. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but Michael. She said, all of Michaels come to the center. And it was like 5 of us. We all were sitting back to back. And she's like, allow Michael to speak through you. And Michael was speaking, and we never interrupted each other. And that's still one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. Because I was just like, what is happening here? You know,
Yeah.
how are we speaking and not interrupting each other? And it was just beautiful, you know. And yeah,
That's so precious.
it
Well,
is.
what's interesting, the role that I play in the caution, and they actually have quite a bit of a sense of humor, and they will poke fun at me because they use different words than I use, and they ask me to be the translator. So basically, I create a transcript. I go in before I meet with someone one-on-one and get the questions to, or the answers to the questions that they've raised. And if I type a word that they haven't used, they'll stop me and they go, that's not the word that we asked you to write. And I'll go, well, that doesn't make any sense. And they'll go, and sometimes they'll say, okay, well, that we like that word. And other times they'll say, nope, you need to, your job is to be the translator, not the interpreter. And I've had some very unusual sessions. I'll give you a great example. I was introduced to this woman. I didn't have anything except her name. And the name sounded very Latin. And I was like, huh. So when I went into the Akashic Records, I was dressed as this older woman. I had pixie haircut, which means it's very short, salt and pepper. I looked Asian, and I was very old, and I was wearing trousers and a tunic and these flat little shoes. They call them ballerina slippers for women. And I had an apron on, and I had a beekeeper's helmet, and I was a beekeeper. But anyway, I'm chatting with the angels and the guides, and I walk into the building, and I go into the room, and I open the door, and there's a little kind of a covered bridge. It's a arched bridge that you can walk across, and it had a pond underneath it. It was a koi pond with these big koi fish in it. And I saw a pagoda, and I saw this table, and I walked over to the table, and it was a scroll that had a Japanese haiku on it. So I realized, oh, I must be Japanese. Well, that didn't make any sense. And so I could read the haiku. It was for someone that she loved. And what's interesting, when I go into the records, I have the ability to recognize the language. So I've actually read Sanskrit, I've read ancient Greek, I've read Japanese, and to name a few. I've not been able to speak the language yet. I hope that at some point I'll be able to do that. But anyway, so I'm reading this haiku, and then the messages come, and she was a beekeeper, but she was also an herbalist and a specialist with plants, but she also cultivated honey. She lived in the 1200s, and she was in the area of Japan today. So when I get on the Zoom call with this woman, I'm thinking, oh man, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Maybe I was having an off day. Get on the call with this lady, and of course she's Japanese. She's from Japan, and this was actually one of her ancestors from many, many eons ago. And this woman is completely obsessed with bees, with honey, and many of the things that she is challenged with in her life today goes back to the role that she played in this very impactful lifetime in her community. So I oftentimes have no idea, why I see the things I see, or I'm dressed in the way that I'm dressed. And I'll give you a great example. I did a reading for a gentleman out of Amsterdam. I didn't know anything about him. And I got this sensation that I was walking into the field to start over to the Akashic Records building as a knight, and I was wearing armor, and all I could think about is how hot and heavy it was, and it was not comfortable whatsoever. And I had this big gigantic sword, and come to find out in the records that I don't know if I think I was the brother of William the Conqueror, who went over to England in 1066 and conquered England. And there's a whole, backstory of William the Conqueror that I read about later. And one of the things, the byproducts of this is, I've become quite a history buff because I'm learning about all these things that I have no knowledge about. So anyway, in William the Conqueror was the Duke of Normandy. Well, this gentleman that I read for, he starts laughing and he says, I didn't believe in this, and my wife got me, this reading. So I agreed to it. To please her, but he said, my family is from Normandy. I'm from a great line of military leaders in his lineage, and he grew up in Normandy. And he rolls up his sleeve, and he has a tattoo of the Knight of Cups from tarot, but it's basically the knight that I saw myself dressed as. And I took on his energy. It was so cool. And I was able to give him a number of things that happened in this lifetime that have continued in patterns for lifetimes that have come into his current lifetime, and things that he's wanting to learn and master. And I also connected with him about another lifetime in Argentina that he continues to be obsessed with Argentina. And I was able to give him the lifetime that he connected with in the past and what he needs to be doing in this lifetime to clear that energy. It's very cool. It's similar to the QHHT technique that, Dolores Cannon has taught, but it's from the Akashic perspective, and they pinpoint, specific experiences. So the teaching that I actually do, Sage, is for practitioners, energy healers, QHHT practitioners who are trying to target where traumas and past life, things have happened in patterns, so that you can bring them forward, clear them, and then go back into the lineage and clear it all the way back to where it started, and then bring it forward and clear it for the future. So it's very insightful in terms of helping people pinpoint things that have happened. And so I'm actually teaching a class right now with a QHHT practitioner.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So when you're in the state of connecting with the Akasha, something I've been trying to, I guess, pinpoint and figure out is there a optimal state to connect with that energy, like from a brainwave state of point? Like, yeah. Is it theta? Is it?
Well, my my children's version of understanding, frequency, I understand that there's alpha, beta, theta. That theta is probably the best. But the way that they've described it to me, I read, Sage, not only from the earth realm, but I read from the angelic realm. I've even read from the galactic realm. And oftentimes I have to recalibrate my energy and my frequency. So sometimes I have to play music. I play crystal bowls. I play the kalimba. I actually bought a lyra, and that is, akin to like a small harp. I'm still learning how to play that, and I'm not going to do it for you today. I've embarrassed myself. But sometimes I have to take a nap. They've made me take a nap for a bit of times. and they want to calibrate my frequency so that I can access and hear the information. Because if you're not calibrated to the right frequency, whether it be earth realm, galactic realm, and I have found some of the galactic realms are probably the most challenging to calibrate. And that's where extra time is needed. And I will tell you, if I'm too tired, they'll say, we're not talking to you tonight. Get a good night's sleep and come back in the morning when you're fresh. So they know when my body's physically tired. But sometimes they will ask me to calibrate through music, or, calibrate through a nap, or by meditating a little bit more. So every time I do that, it's just different based on where I'm reading from and the realm that I represent.
Okay. Gotcha. So, from your perspective of where we are currently, timeline wise, how has things changed from like, maybe when you were growing up? Like, how has the consciousness changed?
Well, I would say it's night and day. And actually, I was thinking about this. I listened to a podcast on the way home. I was about an hour away driving home last night. And it was a woman that channeled some of the former presidents, and it was from 3 years ago. And some of the points were great. And she had channeled Lincoln and Eisenhower, and I forget who else, but it was all about the meaning of democracy. And, were we wanting to stay a democracy as the United States of America? And it was just fascinating. Someone had recommended it to me. And I just realized how far we've come only in 3 years. And you just think about when the pandemic started, and how everything has shifted on the planet, and how things seem to be speeding up. Things seem to be in real time. And so what I am experiencing is just shifts in timelines and expansion. Sometimes that takes your breath away. And then sometimes you feel like you're not making any progress whatsoever. And then all of a sudden you just go whoosh. And so what I'm hearing and feeling, as well as those around me, is that we're all jumping timelines. We're expanding our spiritual practices. We're raising our collective vibration of love. And that is taking over some of the lower frequencies and density that has existed. So I think the more that we get towards the tipping point, and hopefully we'll get there soon, we are going to turn the tide of energy on this planet to the energy of love. And as such, we will start to experience that more and more. And so what everyone is saying to me, and the astrologers that I work with and the spiritual healers, is we're in the now and present moment. We're in the all time, as they say. So focusing on the past is it's not relevant. And I find myself saying more and more, when situations or people come back around from my past, that's just old energy. Let it go. It has no bearing anymore. 2 years ago, I probably still would have been triggered and mad. But now I just find myself, I'm indifferent, and I just go, I don't need to hold on to that. And I also don't need to hold on to this thought from the old days. You had to have, the life plan, the business plan, you're going to go to school, you're going to get this kind of job, you get married, you have babies, you plan your life, and it's like A plus B equals C. It was a very linear way to live. It was also defined by those around us and the belief systems that we grew up with. And so I think many of us have kind of had our eyes opened and maybe the Band-Aid ripped off on, wow, what people told me what this was supposed to be and what it really is about are two completely separate things. And people's judgment around that is still quite incredible. So I think being courageous to show up in the moment and to focus on the vibration of love and kindness and community and peace, and to live in that vibration as much as you can. Now, I would say I'm not any better than anyone else. I have my good days and bad days. This morning, trying to get back here for this podcast. And I just think the more that we focus on the frequency of love, kindness, compassion, peace, that's the ticket. And we don't need to worry about tomorrow. We don't need to worry about what people think of us. We need to be aligned with why we came here as souls and what is our purpose and mission. We can still have an earth job, if you will, it's a being exercise. It's not a doing exercise. And so by being in this beautiful frequency, you are a lighthouse to others, and you are a beacon that helps people awaken to who they truly are, and to let all this past programming of what we were supposed to be or we thought we were supposed to be, let it go, because it's just not relevant anymore, and just be in peace.
Let it go.
Like Frozen, let it go.
I know that's what came to mind.
Yeah, and it's really, you can't make it up either. You either have to feel it or you don't. And people say, well, what is frequency? And Cindy and I joke about that a lot, because she talks about vibration, but it's just your energy. And if you just want to be in the energy of love, think about your puppy. Think about holding a newborn baby. Think about, a walk by the ocean, whatever it takes to get you in that wonderful feeling of love and joy and just contentment. Whatever that is, hold that for 30 seconds, and then go to 60 seconds whenever you're in situations where it's the opposite, where it's fear-based, or people are angry, or they're judging you. And I just don't engage. And they say the best way to play thermonuclear war is not to engage. The way that you do this thing is you just don't engage. It's not relevant. It's just not relevant. And old energy is just old energy. Don't hold it anymore, because it just comes back to each of us if we hold it.
Exactly. For someone who's hearing, who's heard what you said, and they are interested in themselves connecting with the Akasha, how do they go about that as an individual?
Well, I do have a website, and we can put that in the description box. I know how to do that. And I just I meet with people through the website or through email, and I make it really simple and easy. So I typically do a 90-minute session first, where I will go into the records based on a set of questions that you have. Some people don't ask questions. And I normally will pull some tarot cards that go along with it. And I send the transcript, the recording, and a copy of the cards to everyone who makes the appointment. It's a lot of fun. And, I'm so grateful that I was introduced to it. And I'm so grateful that I have this gift to be able to share with people, because it's really been illuminating for people to understand, why did I marry this person? Or why was I born into this family? Why did I choose this experience? What was I trying to master? Why did this person pass, prematurely? And so it gives people a higher meaning and context for why they came into this lifetime and what they're trying to do, and how do they become the highest and best version of who they are. And that's ultimately why all of us came here. Now, how we get there, it's up to the individual. What's right for you is probably different for me. Everyone's on their own unique journey, and there is no judgment here, and there is no right or wrong. It's just the path that you choose to take. And I think if people can think about that, it's worth the time and effort to seek that out. Now, whether that be with me or someone else, that's a person's choice. But I just am very blessed and fortunate to have discovered this way of connecting with souls. And I feel it's very powerful, but also very practical in how you can be the best version of you right now, in the here and now.
Lovely. So for someone who they do want to, connect with you and learn from the ways that you've connected, are there anything that they can do on their own currently? Is there any meditations that they can initially do before they?
I would just say to anyone, if you've never meditated, it might be difficult, to connect to the Akash, but they're saying now anyone can connect to the Akashic Records if you have pure intentions through the Heart Center. I would just recommend you doing, a set of meditations, or at least a routine where you can get into theta state. I do teach, it's probably a more advanced level, but I'm open to taking on, people who want to learn more about it. And that's how they did it with me. We actually started with a number of guided meditations and set of prayers that allowed us to go into theta state, but also to connect with the Akashic Records itself. And once we did that, and I was guided by my trainer, it was easy to do, but you also had to focus your intentions. And so I have to find a quiet space. I usually do a lot of my readings first thing in the morning because I'm an early riser before sunrise. And they do at times take energy out of you. So you have to really replenish your energy. Sometimes I'll have to take a nap after I've done a reading. If it's a very high vibrational type of reading from a different realm. And I would say focus, meditate, and you can access your records, you can ask. But I just felt more comfortable going through training because it really gave me the confidence that I was on the right track.
Yeah, mentorship is definitely important, and someone who's an expert in doing it for years. It's, that's how we used to learn in the past. We had these civilizations where we had, elders who taught us things, and
Absolutely.
it sped you up dramatically, which I feel like it's so funny. I was just talking to someone else I just interviewed yesterday about this, how we've kind of lost that way in America. It's very capitalist, it's very dog eat dog, it's very me versus you.
Right.
And in the past it was very family oriented, and we taught things, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting. My astrologer friend, she says she's no longer a teacher because we're in the here and now moment and it's all new. And we're in this quantum experience where time is in the here and now. And so she calls us all exemplars, that we're really
I love that.
exemplars by our example, and we're all co-creating together. And what you might have a certain gift that you can share with me. I have a gift that I share with you, and it's about community and sharing. And it's around kind of raising the collective consciousness and the level of capability of all of us, as opposed to one versus the other, where it's fear-based, it's competitiveness, it's I do good and you don't. It's all
Right.
about us all winning together and us all being part of this, great ecosystem that supports one another. And it's just, I think that's the kind of world that I want to create and I want to live in. I don't want to live in that old world, and it's not my world. And I'm so grateful that I had the experience because it allowed me to make the choice that I've moved on from that. And so if you are searching for, that new way of being and living, just put it out to the universe, because spirit or God is going to bring that to you in ways. Now, I would tell you, you ask for change, you're going to get it whether you like it or not. And, Sage, about 3 years ago, after my mom passed, I was living in Atlanta, and there was just really nothing left for me there. And other than some very dear friends like Cindy, but my son was living out here in California. So I asked the universe, I don't feel like I'm making progress on my spiritual journey, and I don't like this, and I'm not sure what to do. And we had this horrible storm that came through that night, and it put a tree limb through my house, 3 levels of damage. And it took about 6 months to fix. But in the process, what it accelerated was for me to go ahead and make that courageous decision to leave and to uproot myself and then to move west. And so I ended up getting the house repaired, and I fixed it up, and I put it on the market, sold it in an hour and a half, gave away all my possessions, loaded one suitcase, my dog, and a dog bed, drove west, and never looked back. And I had a house that was, being renovated, but because of COVID, it was delayed. So I ended up staying in a small little place for quite some time before my house was ready. But I just took a leap of faith and just went for it. And it was really a transformational time for me, and it really accelerated my spiritual journey. And I'm just very grateful that I did that. Now, I probably would have thrived if I'd stayed, but not in the way that I really knew that it was aligned with my soul's journey. So if you're convinced of something, sometimes it takes a leap of faith and just knowing that the universe has your back. And I'm just so blessed and fortunate that I took that leap. I've never looked back.
Never looked back. I love that. So the earth, it has that density that allows for these experiences for us to experience the very challenging ones. Is Earth like kind of ascending, like going into a different state of being in
Yes.
which we won't really like it'll just be mostly love-based experiences and not a lot of this
Well,
fear and
there's different points of view on that, and I think everyone has their slightly different version of what's going to happen.
right,
Some people have said that the earth, well, we all know that the energies of the earth are changing, and as witnessed by all these events, Mother Gaia is going through her own transformation and energetic upgrade. And that's evidenced by all the extremes that you're seeing right now all over the earth. There's not one geography that's immune. It's happening everywhere. So she's getting upgraded. At the same time, we're getting upgraded. But we're also being asked to make a choice of, do we want to stay in the energy of love, or do we want to stay in the energy of fear? The energy of love, which is the age of Aquarius energies, people are calling the new earth energies. And some people have suggested, or they think that the earth is actually splitting into two different worlds. Most people say, no, it's a state of consciousness. And those who choose to be in love will have that reality handed to them. Those who choose to live in the fear and the chaos, the power, the control, that's what they're going to experience. And the two worlds energetically can't meet because their energies are just too different. And this is manifesting itself in the closest of relationships. So many of us have, separated from longtime friends, partners, siblings, even parents. And so it's not coming without some challenges. But what people are saying is, whatever your choice is, and you are moving towards, love or fear, that's what you're going to experience in your reality. Whether or not we're on two different planets. I listened to a podcast yesterday where the person said that everything was going to be in the fifth dimension, or the new earth energies, and that people who were choosing to stay in the old energies were going to have to go somewhere else. What that someone or what or where that is, I don't know. It was not explained to me. But most people seem to think it's an energetic frequency state of consciousness, and that we just can't recognize each other. And it's almost like we live on different planets, even though we're on the same planet. But Mother Gaia is going through that amazing transition, not without disruption and not without a lot of upheaval. But you're seeing this upheaval energetically going on all around the world. And our job is to hold the light and to hold the frequency of love. And if that's the only thing that we do, that is the most important thing that we can do. So again, it's not to go off and do something, go to the Himalayas, or go to some spiritual retreat in India and become a yogi. That might be a good thing to do, but people can still be in the same work and roles or transition that, but they hold the frequency of love and that compassion for others that allows people to make that choice. Do I want to stay in fear, or do I want to live in love? And if so, this is what choice I make.
well said, well said. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So we've reached the top of the hour, and
Yay!
I like to ask these questions to all of my guests. What is your definition of love?
Alex Ferrari asked that question on his podcast.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he asked his guest, what is my definition of love? We are a reflection of God. God is within all of us, and we embody God, and he embodies us. So that's what love is. And I think it's the truest form of pure emotion that one can express, simply put.
Well said. I know this one is exclusive to me. What does the sun represent to you?
S-O-N or S-U-N?
S-U-N, sun up in the sky.
Well, see, I'd be a cheater here because, I'm a tarot reader. And the sun, I'm sitting here to see if I can find it. Oh, look, it's right here.
Very good. There it is.
The sun is the most positive card in the deck. It's a major arcana card, for those of you who don't know tarot. And it is the most positive card in the deck. Good fortune, happiness, good times ahead. But it's an energy. It's not a thing. I mean, and that's what the sun represents to me. Hope, the future is positive, and that all things work out according to how they should, and that the future is very bright. So that would be the tarot definition.
That works for me. I love it. I love it. I love it. We would have to do this again because we didn't even talk about tarot, and I love to talk about tarot.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny. I'm not an astrologer. I have lots of my fellow tarot readers. We're in groups together who are fabulous astrologers, and they know numerology far better than me. So I would tell you that I love, the energy of the cards. In fact, I'm going to draw one from, this is called the Sea Oracle, and it's a beautiful, look at this. This is called Awe. All right.
Wow, look at that.
And it says, may you see the sublime in the everyday.
Yes.
So it encourages us to see the sublime or the divinity within the everyday.
Within the everyday.
But they're just very inspirational. A lot of these are very inspirational, very healing, very angelic messages for all of us that speak to our souls, which is very cool.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. It reminds me of what I do every day is just to practice gratitude.
Yep.
And yeah, I love that. Beautifully. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yes. If you just put it's www, I think it's cteglobal.org. And it has all my spiritual stuff, but I also am an amateur photographer. So I do have photography amongst my credits, and I do prints and note cards, that kind of thing. But the information is there. You can reach out, and just a very simple way to connect, but not a big YouTuber, I'm not one. I'm part of a group that reads with a YouTube channel I'm connected to. It's called Soulful Revolution. It's a lady named Mary Jo Cranmore who used to be a producer for the Today Show. So there are about a dozen of us who are certified readers on her channel, and we read collectively and individually. So it's a lot of fun. So
that sounds amazing.
I can give you that information as well.
Awesome.
All righty. Such great fun. And thank you so much for your time and for what you're doing for souls on the planet. I've seen a lot of the other podcasts, and you've had some amazing guests. And I am just honored to be able to share my story and my humble learnings.
Thank you so much for your time as well. And I'm just trying to do what I came here to do, and just bring light.
You're doing it, brother.
Joy. Yes, praise the sun. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.